What's up, Magic fans, and welcome to episode 27 of Penny for Your Thoughts. I don't know, I've started to upbeat this week, but we'll get into why in a minute. As usual, I've got Paul and G with us this week. Paul, how are you?
Very well, my friend. Thank you. Achy legs as a result of all the exercise, but other than that, all good, mate. All good. Excited for the future.
Absolutely. G?
I've had better weeks, let's be honest. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but you know, we've got a goal now, so let's just move towards that goal.
Absolutely. And we are welcoming back our first or a guest that we've had on before. You're the first person to come back on an episode, Josh. So we've got Josh Robbins back on from The Athletic, who we actually reached out to for a few weeks ago, because we thought you'd be the ideal person to come on and help us break down anything that might happen after the trade deadline. So welcome back and thank you for coming on.
The ideal person part is subject to debate. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well,
so, might not turn out too well. I'll do my best, though, I promise.
Oh, dear. So we last had you on back in November, and we did a off-season preview, or we had a chat about what we thought the Magic might do. Obviously they didn't do a lot, and then obviously everything sort of gone from there, really. First of all, I want to air something that a lot of people on Twitter especially have been saying, is thank you to Josh, because you've been doing some tremendous work over the last week or two with your articles on The Athletic. I've been reading your ones that you've been doing with some of the other beat writers for some of the other teams, coming up with ideas for trades and sort of walking us through what the team might be doing as things were sort of unraveling. And also being direct at some of the questions you asked the players before the deadline, like Aaron and Evan, was the sort of things we'd want to ask them. But I don't think there would be many people that could do it as well as you did. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm happy. It's been a lot of, the job is a fun job. I'm fortunate to have it. I'm blessed that people who follow the team bother to read what I write. And so it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. No need to thank me. No need to thank me. Don't even.
It's cool. So what I'll do a quick recap. We had 4 games last week. We started with the Celtics last Sunday, which is an early tip-off, which hasn't really gone well for us in the 2 games this season. The Magic led by 4 after the first quarter. But once the Celtics got their noses in front in the second quarter, and Jaylen Brown made 10 of Boston's 23 3-pointers in the game, the Magic lost 112-96. We then started a 3-game homestand against the Nuggets. It was a horrendous, it's probably the best word for it, first half against Denver. It wasn't good. But they did get themselves going, and they sort of fought back a little bit in the second half. Jokic finished with 28 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. And Evan Fournier, I think, had 31 in that game, sort of helped the Magic sort of stick around in that second half, but we lost 110-99. And then we played the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday, I believe. It would end up being the last game that we saw Nikola Vucevic, Evan Fournier, and Aaron Gordon in a Magic uniform. And what a way to sign off, beating one of the hottest teams in the league at the moment. Vooch finished with a game high 27 points, 14 rebounds. Evan Fournier finished with another game winner with 6 seconds to go. We've got a defensive stop to win the game 112-111. Chuma Okeke in that game had a career high 17 points, 6 of 6 from the field, including 4 threes. And it sent the pro tankers on Twitter into meltdown for a few hours, which we've all had a bit of a laugh about. So that was all good. And then we had the Blazers game last night. It's the first game since the trades that we'll talk about shortly. The Magic only had 7 players available. MCW was a late scratch for a stomach bug and come off the bench. Terrence Ross suited up so they could go ahead with the game. There was no Damian Lillard. Norman Powell had his first appearance for the Portland Trail Blazers. It was a really hard fought 4 quarters. Chuma Okeke again topped his career high with another career high of 22 points, 4 threes, 9 for 15 from the field. But a physical game, the Magic ended up falling short, 112 to 105. Guys, any quick thoughts on the games this week, Paul?
Mate, Phoenix was fantastic to watch. Really enjoyed that. Denver, it was on. I can't say I watched it much because it was really poor. It was another one of those games. Boston was disappointing, obviously. But look, let's focus on the high. Phoenix. It was a really good game, really good performance. And then you've got to applaud the 8 fit players last night. I mean, effectively it was 7.5 because Michael Carter-Williams didn't feature that heavily, but well done to him on even turning out in the uniform. They played some, I think we've been talking about it all day, haven't we? The phrase heart and hustle is returning to O-Town, because that's how they played. It was excellent. I was really impressed by what those guys did last night.
Yeah. G?
Yeah, just echo what Paul said. Very impressed yesterday with the effort, the commitment of the players just to compete whilst on demand. The Phoenix game was a good spectacle for anybody who wants to start watching, the sport of basketball, back and forth, down to the wire. And nice to get the W, especially with Evan and Vooch contributing very well. Second half of the Denver game, commend the effort again, but then the Boston game and the first half of the Denver game, best not talk about it, really.
Yeah. Josh, I've got some questions about how your week's been, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's talk about what's really gone down this week, and that was the Magic deciding to blow everything up and begin a brand new rebuild. The second rebuild that the Magic are going to start since Dwight Howard was traded in 2012. What was your initial thoughts? We'll get into the trades and break those down in a minute. On the decision to trade Vooch, Evan Fournier, and AG. I'll start with G.
Right. So was it Wednesday? No, Thursday. Yeah. You messaged me out of the blue. Vooch is gone. I'm thinking, you're kidding me.
I'm going to stop you there because I was going to tell this story. Okay.
I thought you were.
I'll start with the story. So I'm sat down. Sat down here. I've just finished watching the Suns game on replay a few hours before, and about 20-3 in the afternoon. So it would have been about what's that in the States? Would have been about 10-10 in the morning, something like that.
11-ish.
Yeah, so it's a bit earlier in the day. And I put a WhatsApp group message to you both, and I said, I've got this little gut feeling that Vooch might get traded today, and the reporting has been the complete opposite all along. I stuck the same feeling on Twitter about 10 minutes later, and then 20 minutes later, I'm sat with my daughter asleep, having her afternoon nap on me, and I get the Woj bomb come through. Orlando sending Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu to Chicago. I mean, Woj must have been so excited because he didn't even put "and." It was just a comma. He just wanted to beat Shams to the punch, I think. And I woke my daughter up and to FaceTime G because I know Paul was out walking. Yep. And I was like, G, Vooch has gone. He's like, nah, you're joking, man. You're winding me up. I've been winding you up for a few weeks, haven't I?
You have. I wasn't buying it.
And then...
yeah, you checked it, and oh my God, yeah, Vooch is gone. It's not something we expected, was it? All the reporting was Fournier because he's expiring, Aaron with his trade demands. Yeah. And you watched Vucevic when he was interviewed by Dante after the Phoenix game. He just looked so happy. He just seemed relaxed. He just didn't think he would be traded, and you thought he'd be that centerpiece, you know, when we get Isaac and Fultz back next year, that can bring in this new rookie. And then, you know, we might be challenging again, you know, at least for the postseason. So total shock.
Paul, what was your reaction? Because you were a bit behind the times because you had no signal.
I mean, of all the afternoons to pick to go for a countryside walk where there is absolutely no phone signal, I think I messaged you all to say, right, there's only Evan to go then, only Evan remaining from 2015 when I went to my first game. At which point I got, catch up, mate. He's gone. He went as soon as Vooch did. I'd got no idea. I was out of signal. Look, initially I was really sad, particularly at Vooch. I suppose because I started being a fan in 2014 time. So effectively all I've ever known is rebuild, except for the 2018-19 season, which I absolutely loved. You know, a winning record, going across to the playoffs, the trip that we had. It was excellent. I absolutely loved it. So it was kind of oh, really? Here we go again. Particularly as I felt that this season, before we had any injuries, and particularly before Markel went down, I felt that we could push further in the first round of the playoffs this year. So yeah, there was that reluctance to enter another rebuild. But once the dust settles, my thoughts were, this makes sense. Overall, I'm happy at the position that we've got to start the rebuild. It's overdue. We've all said for a long while that it's needed. Sixth most expensive squad, and we weren't pushing for anything more than potentially the second round of the playoffs. Vooch, as you know, I felt we'd overpaid when we re-signed him. Some of the contracts we've got were definitely hampering progress and abilities to make any changes. So where we are now with the picks and the cap space and player exceptions, the young core, and I suppose the opportunity to be super aggressive in restricted free agency with the cap space that we've got, it's a good place to be. So overall, yeah, I'm happy. I've got no problems on it.
Josh, how surprised were you when you saw the news come through about Vooch? Because we all assumed that he was going to be part of the future for the next couple of years with Fultz and Isaac and the rest of the young guys. What was your thoughts?
Well, I was surprised. Certainly, as I had said many times, the Magic are in a position, or were in a position before those trades, where they had to listen to everything.
Yeah.
Because the path forward for them was so unclear at best. So, of course, they were going to welcome suggestions from teams. What I didn't expect was for them to be willing to part with him, because I do think that it imperils the development of Jonathan Isaac and Markel Fultz. There's no doubt about that in my mind. J.I. and Markel have a lot of potential, no doubt about it. But I think it's going to be a very difficult road for them offensively next year. With the personnel who currently are on the squad, I don't know how the team will have any floor spacing. I don't know how they'll get open shots. I don't.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the potential negatives to the deal. And that's why I didn't think a Vucevic trade was going to happen. What was I wrong? What was I wrong? And there was also talk about, someone had said something somewhere, well, the Magic need a Drew Holiday level trade. Well, I don't think this is that. Yeah. But it's not a bad return at all, and it could mean the difference between a successful rebuild and seven years of a stalled rebuild.
Yeah, I mean,
what I liked. Go
on,
Mikey. Sorry.
No. Go for it.
What I liked, what the front office said in the press conference watched yesterday, is a pivot. You know, the way things were going, like what Paul said, it's probably a second round team. We weren't going to win a championship with that roster. So gaining the assets, the cap space, the flexibility, whilst, you know, extending Markel and Jonathan Isaac, who are, you know, other than Vucevic, were the best players on the team. Granted, Evan was pretty good too. It just gives you that flexibility. If we manage to land Cade Cunningham now, totally bottom out this year, then free agency in 2-3 years' time, you're going to have all that money to throw at somebody who wants to potentially play with these guys, and you know, it might propel us further than the second round. So I like the word pivot.
I wouldn't quite say it's a pivot. I think it's more of a bottom and out than anything. Yeah, I mean, the last few years, I mean, we had the good run in the playoffs in 2018-19, but the last few years just haven't gone to plan, have they really? There was a stat, we've all seen it on Twitter. Markel Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Aaron Gordon, and Mo Bamba never played a minute together on the floor the entire time they've all been on the roster. And they were the group that we all thought the Magic were hoping to build around moving forwards. We know Mo's obviously still a bit of a project. I think I was in more shock when it came through. I was when I said I was FaceTiming Geraint, and I was shaking. I said to you, didn't I? I was shaking, reading it out to you, and I was like, I can't believe it. I was joking. I didn't really joke about it. I just had that little nagging feeling that it might just happen because nobody had reported it. Nobody thought it was going to happen. So it was the shock. We all knew Evan and AG were likely going. So that wasn't really a surprise. But the thing I'm positive about, I feel like this young group of players that we've got at the moment, so Markel Fultz, Hampton, Cole Anthony, Chuma, Jonathan Isaac, Mo, Wendell Carter Jr., I feel like that's a really nice young core group of talented players that I don't think Rob Hennigan ever really had to build, or he didn't have that amount to start off with. He started with a lot less than this. We've got this year, we've got our own first round pick, which is likely going to be a top pick. We've got Chicago's first round pick as well. So they're starting from a good young base. The thing I worry about, and I'm sure Josh, we're going to talk about this shortly, is the veteran leadership in that locker room. What do you think to that, Josh? Is that something that you're worried about moving forwards? Now Vooch has specifically gone as well.
Well, I think it has the potential to be an issue, without question. Gary Harris, Otto Porter, all good, you know, both good veterans. That's true, but that's not you need more than just being a good veteran, and they might be more. Just how happy will they be next year when the team has lost perhaps 8 out of 9?
Yeah.
You know, actually, I don't think Otto Porter will be here next year, but that's just a guess. The last rebuild the Magic had is instructive. Jameer Nelson had a rough time in that rebuild. It got to be very difficult for him for reasons that were beyond his control in part, but it's an issue. You can't just put a whole bunch of young guys on a team, particularly a team that's going to lose a lot of games, and expect everything to go well with the mood of the team and the work ethic, work habits. You know, losing 50 plus games, again, if that's what happens, as it appears it will be, that's very tough. That's very difficult. And if you put a bunch of 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old people who are just new to the league and are trying to understand how the league works, you potentially are asking for trouble if you don't have the right coach. Now, if Steve Clifford and his coaching staff remain, that will be a huge, huge plus for the development effort. But one also with some potential risks, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah. And what one thing I want to finish on with that is watching last night's game against the Blazers, watching MCW and Ennis. You got veterans like that playing with these young guys, they play hard. And I think if whatever group they surround these young players with, that's the sort of players you want with them, that they're trying to show them the way. Anyway, moving on. So Vooch has been with the Magic for 9 years. Evan Fournier was 7, as well as Aaron Gordon, who got drafted by the Magic. Have we got any favorite moments or memories? Any sort of final thoughts on those guys and their time in Orlando, Paul?
Right, well, as we said, I thought Vooch would be Magic for life. My favourite moment, I'm going to go for 3 moments with a moment with each player that I was in the Amway for. My favourite moment for Vooch, and this is where my mind went straight away, was the game-winning 3-pointer that he hit November 2015 over the Lakers, buzzer beater. Evan, it has to be the 2-pointer that he hit against the Cavs in November 2018. Again, another buzzer beater. Sat courtside for that one. I was up and jumping around. It was amazing to be present for. And from the same trip for AG, it's again November 2018. DJ Augustine with the alley-oop to AG, hand behind the head for the Karl Malone mailman slam dunk. That was great. I loved it. So they're my 3 memories of them. That's what I'm going with.
G?
Yeah, you can't fault these guys at all. You know, they're consummate professionals, carried themselves very well, represented the franchise, you know, and they're highly regarded around the league. As for favourite moments for each of them, for me with Vucevic was actually getting to meet Vucevic. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. It was a game back in 2017, and it was, you know, just after shoot around, probably just over an hour before tip-off, and he's there talking to myself and my friend Mark, signs my jersey, has a photo, no problems at all. You know, nothing was too much effort. So you got to commend him. You know, he's a superstar player just talking to little old me. So that was really nice. Along with all his buzzer beaters. Paul mentioned the Lakers when I was going to say that, but and he also did one against the Hawks as well.
I was there. I've got to have that one, Anna.
Yeah, no,
I was ever so pleased that I was going first on this section, so I knew I was getting that
one. Fournier, then, I think he's carried himself extremely well. He's been given a thankless job, really, of trying to be the main focal point. As you guys know, I've defended him to the hill. So, you know, you just wish him the very best and thank him for his services. And then with AG, you probably think about the dunk contest, possibly. But he's done a lot for the Central Florida community. And I think it was his Code Orlando project this year, giving back to the community that he got involved with. So, you know, these are all top guys, and you wish them all the best, really.
Yeah. Josh, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. How do you think the 3 of them are going to do in their new situations? Do you feel like where they've gone is probably going to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you think it's going to suit them more as players? Because obviously in Orlando in their time, there's been more asked of them than probably should have been.
It'll be fascinating to watch. And I think they'll do fine. Eventually, I think the first few games are going to be rough, at least. Typically, mid-season trades are tough to deal with. The person I'm most interested in is Aaron Gordon, because he's joining a team with 2 established stars plus another young rising star, and in Orlando, I think he really overextended himself in terms of his game. Now, you're right. Part of that was because of the role Orlando needed him to play. That's true, but I don't think that was all a part of the personnel. So can he stay in his lane in Denver? He sounded great today on his press conference in Denver. I look forward to seeing how that turns out. I think he could be a tremendous addition to their team if he is in a very well described role.
So let's break down the different trades that the Magic decided to make. So I don't think there's a lot of fans online who probably think that the front office have been sat on their hands the last few years and they haven't been aggressive in deals. And I don't believe that to be the case. I just don't think that those deals ever really presented themselves. Running it back wasn't an option with the players getting older, contracts expiring, injuries to Fultz and Isaac. And the Magic decided to blow it up and go a different direction. So it all started with the trade of Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu to Chicago. And the Magic got back Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks, top 4 protected this year and in 2023. Josh, what do you think about the return that the Magic got for Vooch? Because obviously there was a lot of talk about people thinking that we should get a star in return if we're going to trade Vooch, and that wasn't to be the case. But what do you think about that move?
I'm not sure it's realistic to have expected a star in return for Vooch. Partly because of his age, partly because he had 2 years remaining on his deal. Ideally, a team that acquires a player would like more time. But I think it's a good starting point. Those 2 first-round picks have the potential to help, but I don't think that they're going to help quite as much as Magic fans hope that they will. Depends on where they land. If those picks are 6 or 7, well, that's one thing. If the Bulls start to take off and wind up with the 15th or 16th pick, well, then they're not great.
Yeah.
They're not great. Wendell Carter Jr. so far has not distinguished himself in the NBA. Otto Porter Jr., I doubt the team will re-sign him, but it's early to say. Certainly the cap implications are excellent for the Magic. It's very good to get beyond the Aminu contract.
Yeah.
Vooch's final 2 years, although he has a reasonable salary. I would love to give you a definitive answer, but so much of this is going to depend on where the picks end up, and then if they draft well, which this team hasn't always done.
Yeah.
Josh,
I was just going to say, G, I think when we were talking about getting picks back, the comment that was passed was, we don't want another Mario Hezonja. That's the danger of picks. You know, you're not guaranteed to get something back that's actually going to work out.
No, that's right. That's right. And just a question on those top 4 protections, if you'd be so kind. What if the Bulls do sort of bottom out this year and the pick does land in the top 4? What's the stipulation? What will the Magic get instead?
I have to look back at my notes, my understanding, or at least my recollection, and I'm not properly caffeinated to say that I'm 100% correct. I believe that goes down to top 3 protected the next year.
Okay.
So, in which case, since league rules prohibit teams from trading first-round picks in 2 consecutive years. Yeah. So if it gets conveyed in 2022, then the other pick would be conveyed at the earliest in 2024.
Okay. So they don't, like some picks, convey to 2 seconds. They'll just push back a season.
That is the most likely scenario.
Right.
I'm not certain with my recollections how it will ultimately dissolve if it ever gets that far, but it does seem unlikely that it would get that far.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the second trade, have anybody got any other thoughts on that Vooch trade? No.
I just throw in there as well. You know, I was initially extremely disappointed. I thought we were keeping him. It was just that shock thing. You've got an all-star who loves Orlando, does not want to leave, and you saw with Josh's question today in the media what that did to Vooch. You know, he teared up, didn't he? And it's quite a difficult watch, really. So you have somebody who just wanted to be here, is an all-star, and it's just a bit difficult for us to swallow. But we do understand why it was done. It's just difficult.
You weren't unhappy. You were steaming. When
Yeah,
I
okay.
rang you, you were steaming. There's words that I'm even going to say on the podcast. You were not happy.
I had Sabrina message me to say, "What have we done? What have we done?" And then the next message was, "It's pointless me trying to get any work done today. I just can't concentrate." It showed that's how it affected people. That's how much it affected people. The other thing, just on this trade, am I right in saying, did I hear right or read somewhere that Wendell Carter Jr. was on the same college team as Chuma? Was it Chuma?
He was at Duke.
He was on the same AAU team out of Atlanta. Isn't it interesting, though, guys, that people are, their reactions are, I get it. I agree with it if I were a fan. Tough to lose Vooch. I get it. But isn't it interesting how perceptions, opinions have changed over the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Had this trade occurred early in the 2018-19 season, I don't think fans would have shed a tear. But isn't it interesting how, as human beings, opinions evolve and change? And I hope that people's opinions on Evan Fournier changed when he had that heartfelt response to his feelings for Orlando and the team the night before the deadline. Allow me to editorialize here, but the Evan Fournier I know and have seen as a journalist over 7 years is not the Evan Fournier fans perceived. And I think that's a real shame and inaccurate. I don't know. I'm not trying to make a point per se or anything like that. I'm just making an observation that it is interesting how fans' perceptions of people change over time. It's fascinating to me. And I'm sure that back when I was a fan, before I got into journalism, that my opinions changed. Anyway, thank you for letting me just digress.
I think it's a perfectly good point about Evan, because he, for me, I find him either brilliant or frustrating. There was very rarely an in between with Evan. But the thing I would never question him about was his actual intention and dedication to the team. And similar to what you've said, Josh, when I've got to meet him a couple of times, and he was another one, as Garant said about Vooch, who was generous with his time, would stand and talk to you, would engage you. Nothing was too much trouble. So I can't go with a lot of the hate that Magic fans have got towards Evan. It's not where I would come from. Quite agree with you.
And look, I get criticizing him as what he does on the court. That's I agree. I can understand how someone would feel that way. He's, as you guys described, a very feast or famine player. And hey, it's 100% legitimate to criticize anyone for their work performance, me included. But if I write a bad sentence or construct a story poorly, doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. This means I was incompetent in that one instance. So anyway.
I think something that Nick Anderson said to us was that it's very easy for people who have never played basketball to criticize. You stand and prepare yourself to take a charge from somebody who's coming full pelt at you, 6'6" and 200 and whatever pounds. Brace yourself and then stand up and tell me that I'm rubbish at defense, or I can't, the people who have never dunked a ball, I've never dunked a ball. It's very hard for me to criticise somebody for missing a shot when I can't do it myself.
You need to work on your plyometrics, Paul.
Whatever that means, yes.
Right, so moving on to the Evan Fournier trade. So he got traded to the Boston Celtics for Jeff Teague, who's now been waived by the Magic, and 2 second-round picks and a 17.1 million trade exception. He was an expiring contract. Are you happy with what we got back for Mr. Fournier?
I know the Boston fans are happy to get a player who can average 20 points a game, put the ball in the hoop. He'll be a key piece for them. The problem is that the market dictated what we got, didn't it? So it was only 2 second rounds on offer. So we had to take what we could get. Otherwise, we'd risk losing him for nothing. And he'd still be on the roster trying to compete and probably racking up these W's, which puts us out of the, the top 3 or 4 for the lottery. So, well, it is what it is, isn't it? There's not much more else to say about it. That's the best offer we had, so we had to take it.
And once Vooch was gone, it was a foregone conclusion, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. I mean, I did feel that it's kind of a very low return for an expiring contract for a player of that stature. But in fact, Josh, can I ask you? Obviously, we got this 17 million trade exception back with the Evan deal, and it's one of those things that I've kind of got a rough idea, but I don't think I'm 100% clear. How is it something that the Magic could potentially use?
It could be used to trade for a player who is in the final year of his contract, or is about to be in the very final year of his contract. Or excuse me, that's totally wrong. It's I got confused with the disabled player exception. I told you I should be more.
We'll edit that bit out, Josh. It's fine.
Yes. So anyway, how could it be used? Well, I will say this: a traded player exception or trade exception that dissolves after 1 year's time. It cannot be combined with another person's salary. For example, it can't be combined with, say, someone who earns $10 million to create $27 million of outgoing salary to get a $27 million player in. Yeah. It's a mechanism to add someone when you're over the cap. And could the Magic use it? Yes. Within this calendar year, yes. But if the team is going to attempt to bottom out, is it likely to pick up a high quality player with the knowledge that he may raise the win total and hurt the value of your own pick? I guess that's a rhetorical question I just asked, but these are some of the issues involved.
Yeah, my feed froze up. I'm sorry, so I kind of only got the first few words. So is it? So I don't know if you've already answered this or not, and I apologise if you have. Is it something that you can't carry over to for next year, then into the next season?
I believe it lasts 1 calendar year from the moment of the trade was consummated.
Okay,
cool. Yeah. So 12 months, because they got it from the Gordon Hayward trade to Charlotte, didn't they? Yeah.
So just so I understand it, so Gary Harris has got a year left after the season. I think it's about 20 million. So let's say, I'm just making the trade off the top of my head, Golden State wanted Gary Harris and they wanted to get Andrew Wiggins off their books. If the Magic were close to the cap, they could absorb some of Wiggins' money into that trade exception by swapping Harris. Is that how it, or do you just trade for that player?
No, it could be used for multiple players coming in,
right?
But it can't be combined with someone else or another trade exception. To create even more of an opportunity to bring aboard a much higher salary person. I can't combine my $10 million salary plus this $17 million trade exception to go get, I don't know, Bradley Beal. Actually, he makes much more than 27 million, but I just thought it would be funny for me. I just thought it would be funny for me to say that, oh, my $10 million salary. That's not going to happen, nor should it happen, nor do I deserve $10 million. So it's just funny to even contemplate.
And not that my trade idea made any sense. So we'll move on from that one. And then the last trade that happened, I think we were all expecting a few more, but they didn't come to fruition, was Aaron Gordon going to Denver for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a 2025 first round pick, which is top 5 protected. Paul, was it about what you thought we might get for AG?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of us felt that we would get more, but I think we've said before, there was an awful lot of overestimation of what the market value of somebody like Aaron Gordon is. He's been a fluctuating in efficiency for us over his years. He's never developed as much as people would have expected. So there's still an element of risk for whoever take him on. For us to get back RJ Hampton, he's in his rookie season, isn't he? If memory serves me right. Mm-hmm. Athletic, guard position. He seems to be something that we wanted. Improve his shot, then he's going to be a threat at the rim because of his athleticism. Plays 1 or 2, so yeah, he's a nice piece to bring in. We'll see where he goes. You know, I quite like Gary Harris. I think he's a solid player. He's been with the Nuggets since coming into the league. Decent shot. He can do as a job. 36% from 3, I think I read. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I don't think it was an awful deal. And their pick, a lot depends on how they go over the years, doesn't it? Really, as to where that's going to fall. I can't imagine that they're going to be in the market for a top a 6th or 7th pick. I would imagine that it's going to be lower down than that. It's what it is. We were hitting reset, so whatever we got back, fine. I'm good with it.
I think it was along the lines of what Josh, I think you wrote about it several weeks ago, about if the Magic traded Aaron Gordon, if Fournier's at the door, Gordon's your most likely player to bring back a starting caliber 2 guard, which is what essentially happened, wasn't it? Josh, with that,
Can we
just re-emphasize? Can we just re-emphasize how great I am?
Absolutely.
Look, Gary Harris is a starting 2 guard, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's exactly what he is.
Legit. Dave Dufour of The Athletic and I posited this exact trade in a piece that was written on that was published Tuesday. Yeah. So I didn't say it was going to happen or that that's what they were discussing. I put a hypothetical trade. I said to my man Dave, if you were in the Nuggets shoes, would you do this? And he said yes. So enough about patting myself on the back.
That was one of your was it 7 different trades you come up with? Was it that article, wasn't it? I think
yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yes.
We all just need to listen to Josh a lot more, basically. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just a quick
that's
question.
What I'm hinting, but we all know that's not good sound advice. But that is what I'm saying.
Just a quick question about that top 5 protected pick as well. I'm guessing that's a bit like the Bulls picks. If they get a top 5 pick in 25, then it conveys to the following year. I think it's a smart pick. I saw a couple of people were like 2025, or what's the point in having a first round pick? 5 or 4 years away, you never know what can happen to the Denver Nuggets. If Jokic turns around, if they don't win a title, if they don't contend or get close to contention or making the finals, and Jokic turns around and goes, I want out, or Jamal Murray, 4 years is a long time, and you never know that they could be. I'm not saying they're going to be in a situation like we're in, but that 25 pick 2025 pick could be a little bit higher than we probably project it to be at the moment.
There's more than one team have had that happen to them, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
more than one team.
Yeah.
Plus, I think that there were some sort of future picks that already had been promised by Denver to other teams that prevented anything from being any sooner anyway. But your point, as Scott Skiles would say, when anyone would say something interesting or worthwhile, we'd say, well, your point is valid. Well, Mikey, your point is valid.
Josh, Denver, of course, we heard rumors, we were going to possibly trade with them, and read a couple of tweets, articles that said RJ Hampton was added in late. Do you have any speculation as to what they were offering before he was added in late?
I don't, but I suspect that RJ Hampton was highly coveted by Orlando in that deal. And in terms of any of the players who were the 4 people who were brought in, and I'm not referring to the upcoming draft picks, but he is the player with the highest untapped upside. I think that they are very happy to bring him aboard, that they view him as a young, uber athletic guard who potentially could develop into a very dynamic, exciting two-way player.
Yeah.
That will be one of the most, his growth, and he's only 20, so he's got a long, long way to go. His growth will be one of the most fascinating things to monitor over the next 2-3 years. It really will be. I look forward to watching it because it's just as an intellectual exercise, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, Mikey, I told you to get his jersey.
Gee, you're always on jerseys, mate. You're on jersey.
I know.
No, I'm really excited to see RJ Hampton. He's got a lot of bounce. There's been some viral videos going around of him in practice or shoot around, practicing between the legs and dribbles and all that sort of stuff, and finishing with dunks. So I think if anything, he's going to almost replace Aaron Gordon for that wow factor with highlights and stuff like that. So I think he's one to watch. So Magic had turned a page. So we're looking to the future now. We've got 27 games left to endure this season. And I think we can all agree the main focus the rest of the way is really developing and focusing on giving minutes to Cole Anthony when he returns, Chuma, who's been really, really good and showing what he could do. It's really funny, actually, because we've got a UK Twitter group there's about 35, 40 of us in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And a couple of days ago, I think it was before the Suns game, we were like, what's happened to Chuma's offense? Like, he's been posting like 4 points or 2 points a game and stuff like that. Next minute, he's hitting 17, 22. He can't miss a 3. So he's going to get his opportunity. Mo Wendell Carter Jr. when he comes in. So I think that's what we're all sort of looking forward to.
Yeah. Josh,
definitely.
Who from the current roster of, kind of your veteran role players who wouldn't generally, get more than 15, 20 minutes would you could benefit from these remaining 27 games for the Magic, to just show what they can do?
Well, I think all of them can, because they are going to get a heck of a lot more shots than what Vooch, Evan, Aaron took. So James Ennis could potentially raise his value, potentially, by some inflated stats from here on out. Certainly Mo Bamba is not a James Ennis. It's a totally different situation, different points in their career. Mo Bamba is going to start to get, I imagine, heavy playing time. Certainly heavier than what he has got. Very important for him. Cole, Chuma, they'll play as long as they're healthy, and they'll play extensively. So just because a young player gets a ton of minutes doesn't mean he gets better. But to say that, I think that's one of the things that when fans talk about player development, player development isn't just putting a guy on the floor 30 minutes a game. There's so much more to it than that. It's doing it in a way that ultimately helps a team win. And that's one of the biggest problems of the Magic's last rebuild, one that failed, frankly. They didn't develop those players well. They just didn't.
Yeah. Talking of bringing players in and success, Lakeland did really well in the bubble, the G League bubble. Is there a way? I mean, there's lots of fans wanting to see somebody like Devon Kennedy being brought in to the team. Is there a way that the Magic could do that? And do you feel that he could step up and do a job for the team?
As a matter of fact, it's interesting that you met. I'm not going to break any news because I don't have any news to break, but I will tell you that you mentioned Jeff. I think Mikey mentioned that Jeff Teague has been waived. Well, that leaves an open roster spot for them. That would open the door for Devin to be signed, maybe to a 10-day, maybe to a contract for the rest of the year. It's possible. That's a possibility. He was superb in the G League bubble. They like what he brings, but is he an NBA prospect? If he were, he'd be on a roster by now. Maybe everyone has misevaluated him. It's possible. But that's interesting that you bring that up. It's a possibility, I would imagine.
There's a real clamour amongst Magic fans for him to be given a chance when you read Twitter and whatever. So I was just interested if you thought he could actually do a job for the team.
I think if he gets a 3-point opportunity, he has a chance to hit it. I don't mean to be flippant. I'm not trying to be. But that's one of the things he brings in a sport where the 3-point shot is more important than ever before. So yes. Yeah.
Because if he fails, he's had a shot then, and it's not really affected our chance of winning. So it's kind of a win-win, I suppose. Either way, we can give him a shot and see if he can develop and do us a job. And if not, and if he doesn't, hey, it helps the lottery chances. Should we say that?
Well, the Magic have done that in the past, right? In the year that Luka Doncic and Trae Young were drafted, the injury-riddled Magic in Frank Vogel's final year with the team did exactly that.
Yeah.
Rodney Purvis, Jamel Artis, at best fringe prospects, guys brought in from the G League, and remain with the team for the rest of the season. It's possible.
Yeah.
They're very bright.
Excellent.
They're a very bright young man, Paul. Very bright young man.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. More than the bright comment, the young side of it.
I empathize.
Josh, one thing I want to ask you about is the coaching situation. So I think it's pretty well known that the Jeff Weltman and Steve Clifford have both got a year left on their contract, and I don't think the Magic would have probably agreed to blowing it up if Jeff Weltman's job wasn't safe. I'm still fully behind Jeff Weltman. I'll just leave it at that. But when it comes to the coaching side of it, what are you? I'm not asking you to delve anything, but do you think there's a possible coaching change coming, or do you think Steve Clifford would be happy sticking with this and helping the Magic through this rebuild? And because I think he's a very good coach, and he'll be the sort of coach that you want to sort of spearhead this new start for us.
I think he and his coaching staff will be ideal to develop young players. This narrative that he doesn't develop young players is inaccurate in my judgment. From everything I've seen and heard throughout the league, and through his tenure both in Charlotte and Orlando. But I think there are two factors to consider. A, does he want to be heading a rebuilding project as opposed to coaching a team that is fighting for the playoffs and being in the playoffs. I don't know. I just simply don't know. I don't have any, I'm not suggesting anything. I just don't know the answer to it. I could see why he wouldn't. And yet I could also see why he would, because, hey, there are only 30 jobs in the league now. So there's value to being a head coach. But there's also a flip side to all this. One of the most important parts of this rebuild will be where the Magic's own picks fall, the ones that they own, for which their record determines the spot. This coaching staff excels at getting the most out of its teams. Is it possible that even with a roster with limited talent, as it has now and as it likely will have next year, that they will coax enough wins out of that team where they significantly reduce their chances of getting the first or second or third pick in the lottery? Yes, it's possible. That would be the only negative of keeping Steve Clifford, is that in a perverse way, he and his assistant coaches are too darn good coaches. Yeah. Imagine that, where that would be a scenario where it would have negative effects, but that's a problem with the way draft picks are allocated.
Well, we
get
saw
rewarded
that
for being bad.
Yeah, well, we saw that last night, didn't we? We nearly beat the Blazers with half a squad, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
We also had a question come in from one of our followers, Anthony Unwin. And I don't know if it's something that you're able to answer or not. He's asking if the organisation will or are doing reviewing training protocols and their training staff, given the number of injuries we've suffered this season.
I asked Jeff Weltman that exact question in the piece that published late last night. I'll let him speak for himself on that. Yes, I think that's the best way to answer that. Basically, he said he has full confidence in the training staff. But I'll let people read his response to try to gather their thoughts. It's interesting to me, by the way, that when Markelle Fultz came back at the start of last season and was looking rejuvenated from his time in Philly, everyone was complimenting the training staff. Well, yeah.
We actually had a talk about this earlier on, didn't we, lads? And the kind of consensus we have is that there has to be some leveling of criticism towards the NBA itself for the number of games that they're squeezing into a very, very short period of time. It's affecting every team. It's not just Orlando that have had injury issues this season.
And well, yes, Orlando has it far in excess of anyone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But and to amplify your point, Paul, it's not just the games piled up on top of it, one on top of another, although that I would imagine is a factor. It's also a limited training camp, no group workouts, voluntary workouts ahead of training camp, as there usually is in September of a so-called normal year. It all factors in. Yeah. It all factors in. It's all an issue, I would imagine.
Yeah. And part of that, anyway, Jonathan Isaac was out from the bubble. One of the injuries that we've suffered, and Aaron Gordon as well, to start the season, were both from the bubble. They don't actually relate to this particular season.
Yeah. The one thing I'll add is, with injuries and the draft lottery and all of this, we are hoping for a lot of luck to come our way, because we've not had it the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of this, it's a gamble, Josh, isn't it? You've wrote about that, but the whole changing of this direction is gambling what things are going to go like. So all eyes at the moment are really going to be on that draft lottery. I don't think the date or anything like that's been decided yet when that's going to be done. We've obviously got the 2 picks, our own pick, which hopefully is number 1, but we will see. One question that I didn't put on our agenda I wanted to ask you guys, which is being talked about a little bit more today, and especially since Vuce got traded on Thursday, is do we think it's time that the Magic start retiring player jersey numbers that have had a significant role in the Magic's franchise over the years? So Penny, Shaq, Dwight, T-Mac, Vuce, you can include on there, maybe Jameer. What do you think?
Nick.
Sorry, did I not say Nick? Sorry.
Shame on you.
Shame. It's like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
We'll have you walking through the streets naked, mate, with throwing food at you and all that.
Myself, I believe we should, especially the likes of Nick, Daryl, players who. The number one is very difficult because Penny's worn it, T-Mac's worn it, Jonathan Isaac is currently wearing it. So, you got to leave that until Jonathan Isaac, retires or whatever. But certainly Nick, Daryl, I think should. And then you just wait until players retire. They've been, great community ambassadors, fan favourites. And to be honest with you, every time you had a Western Wonder jersey last year, Mikey, mate, and I kept winding you up because nobody else should wear 25. Chris Gatling wore it. Chris Duhon wore it. Nobody, Chason Randall's wearing it. I don't like it.
Magic
That's Nick's
legend
number.
Chris Duhon.
Nick's number. So I'm all for it.
Dragon Paul? You don't care either way, do you?
I don't know. It's a number. Look, I can see the argument for, but you look at number one. Who do you retire it for?
Well, you have to put both up there if you're going to do it, aren't you? So
and Isaac.
That's the question. I mean, like you said, you've got to wait for Jonathan Isaac to finish his career. Now he's playing as number one, or to leave the team if you're going to retire that number. But is it all three players that get it up there eventually? Assuming that Jonathan Isaac develops in the way that we all hope, or do you just write him out of it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I can see the argument for Nick, most definitely. But do we need to retire the number when we've got the Hall of Fame? I quite like that side of things, that we have something a little bit different. It's fan interactive. It's somewhere to have a nice walk around before the game. So I quite like that rather than the shirt hanging in the rafters. Personal opinion.
For me, that's not enough. You want it in the rafters where everyone can see it, because otherwise it's just one section of the concourse. But that's just me. I
think you should have both, because you can't hang David Steele's number or jersey in the rafters, although that would be pretty cool. So no, I definitely think they should do it. Josh, do you think the Magic might change their stance? Because I think, was it 2013 or round about that time that Alex Martins was basically saying the first person that wins a championship here, that player might go up in the rafters. I'm not quite sure. What do you think? Is it a question you could put to management when you speak to them next?
It's a story idea I have broached with my editors, but after the events of this week, it's not the highest one on my list.
No, of course.
So, but the Magic are kind of in a corner on that, aren't they? They're 3 or 4 greatest players in team history, or the guys who were the most dominant while with the Magic: Shaq, Dwight, T-Mac, Penny. All 4 of them left on bad terms. So it's an issue. It's an issue. And
that was something I was going to say. You look at, would you want Dwight? Is number raising?
I think the one thing that sort of sparked this the last day or two is the fact that Vuce is probably the first All-Star that we've had that actually wanted to stay in Orlando, not get traded. So I think there's a little bit more of a sentiment towards Vuce going up there, but we will see. Any other questions, guys? Want to throw it, Josh?
No. All good, mate.
No,
Cool.
Don't want to take too much of his time up.
No, absolutely. So our next episode, we weren't planning on doing this. We've got an episode coming up on Wednesday evening with Kevin Clark from The Ringer, who's also a big Magic fan, which we reached out to him on Twitter the other evening after the trade deadline and everything went down. So he's coming on to join us on Wednesday. So looking ahead to next week, predictions from last week. I've got my second one right. So I believe all three of us have had 2 weeks right now. So we're all tied. So I think we all might go a similar way the rest of the way. We'll see. So the Magic went 1 and 3, beat obviously the Suns, lost to the Celtics, Nuggets, and Blazers. So this week, the Magic have got the Lakers on Sunday evening for the States, early hours for us in the UK. It's a 3 a.m. tip. The Lakers are missing LeBron and Anthony Davis. Talk that they might end up in the play-in tournament if they don't get them back anytime soon. I'm not quite sure it's going to go that far, but we never know. They're 4th in the West at 29 and 17. And then on Tuesday night, we play the Clippers, also at the Staples Center. It's another 3 a.m. tip-off, and they are 3rd in the West at 30 and 16. Right, let's see if we've got any surprises this week. So 2 games for Wednesday. What are we going with? What's your records, Paul? 2-0?
0-2, mate.
Gee.
I don't see it. Look, I hate doing it. You know I do.
I know.
I can't embrace the tank. I don't watch my team to want them to lose. I don't care. Whatever the reward is, it doesn't sit right with me. I would still, I know I've said this before, I would still rather a team that got close to the playoffs have the better lottery odds than somebody who is deliberately losing. I think it's wrong. Yeah. But as we are, I'm going to go 0-2 simply because we have a lot of pieces coming in potentially to join up. There's going to be teething issues to start with. Yeah. I would imagine. So that's why I'm going 0-2. Otherwise, I would have felt fancy us to beat the Lakers.
Gee.
I still hope we do.
We beat the Lakers. That's what's happening. You know my feeling of the Los Angeles Lakers. We're going 1-1. The guys are going to come in. The new guys are going to want to show off. And we're going to have a performance like we did at Staples Center last year, the day before we signed Gary Clark, and he just went off. These players are going to want to come in, compete, and show what they can do. Yep. So let's go with 1-1, and we're beating the Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, I like your optimism, and I ain't going with it. I'm going 0-2, and I'm just leaving it there. Josh, do you want to give us a prediction?
No.
No, that's not. It's cool. It's cool.
I don't do predictions.
It's cool. Right, we've got just enough time for a quick bit of Magic trivia. I like this, what G did a few weeks ago. It's called Who Am I? I'm going to let Josh go first. So I'm going to give you a player. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm going to give you 5 things about that player, and you got to guess who it might be. Okay. It's a Magic player, so I'll give you that far. So you got to choose A, B, or C, and it depends which player it is. Depends which facts I'll give you. So
great. It's like being on Jeopardy. It's like,
so A, B, or C.
Let's do this.
A, B, or C, Josh.
Oh, you're actually asking me already? Well, how do I know who the?
I can't tell you. You got to guess. Sorry, you just got to pick, and then I'll give you the facts, and then
I'll go with B, please.
B. Okay. So, fact number 1. I was born in Dallas, Texas. That doesn't really narrow it down, but
I know who it is.
Do you?
Is it a current player? You're talking about a current guy?
Oh, I can't be that nice to you, Josh.
All right, go ahead.
All right, I'll give you the second one.
On.
In 2017, I was transferred to Montverde Academy, Florida. No idea?
Okay.
Do you want to guess? Do you want
no,
another
not
one?
yet. I want to hear. I want to hear more.
I was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks.
Drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, and you're saying a Magic player.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let me think here. This is sleep deprivation is hurting me.
The
All right,
next,
continue. Let's.
the next one will probably give it away. Does anybody else want to guess?
No, I'll let Josh have this one.
All right.
Yeah. I think I actually might know this one.
Okay. Fourth one. I played for the New Zealand Breakers.
Okay, well there we go. Thanks. So that's quite clearly James. No, I know it's RJ Hampton.
RJ Hampton. Was that who you're going to go with,
Thank
Paul?
you.
Yeah.
And the last one was I wear number 13. So there we go. Right, let's go, Paul. So you got A or C, buddy.
What should we pick? One I can't pronounce now.
No.
A.
Okay. I have so number one, I have a 7'5" wingspan.
Go on.
I
Yeah,
was
the
a
Ollie.
McDonald's All-American in 2017. Geez, nodding like he knows this one.
I do.
17. So Mo?
Not far off. You're not far off. Okay, third one. I averaged 13.5 points per game at Duke. So that might give it away.
It would if I actually paid any attention
All right,
to college basketball. Let's go with Tuma then.
Fourth,
Was it?
I was
Oh, God.
drafted by the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, so it's going to be Wendell
Yep.
Carter Jr.
Correct. Right. Okay, G. C
Yes.
then for you.
Go on
Number
then.
one, I was born on the 16th of May 2000.
Oh, this is going to be Gary Harris, isn't it? Because you've gone over the theme here.
Nope.
Okay.
I grew up playing football / soccer, switching to basketball at the age of 12.
A Magic player.
I'm
No, keep
so
going.
glad they gave you this one because this is a stonker. This one might narrow it down. I represented Canada at the 2019 FIBA World Cup.
Got this one.
This one would be Kareem Manet.
Correct. There you go. That's pretty easy. The last two was I was an NBA G League champion and I wear number 4. So there we go. Cool.
Cool.
Done. Josh, thank you for coming on again. Thank you for giving us your time. I know you've been super busy this week and
That's my pleasure, guys. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Cool.
And,
Thank you very much.
Let's
Happy to be here.
we got 27 games left to enjoy, guys. We're nearly there.
Yes.
And so for those of you who watch us and listen to the podcast, make sure you're following Orlando Magic UK on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and obviously our YouTube channel. Josh, is it Joshua B. Robbins that everybody can follow you? They should be following you. Let's be honest. If you're a Magic fan, everybody should be following you.
Yeah.
So if they're not, then make sure you go follow Josh. Subscribe to your work at The Athletic. There's some awesome articles. I know you've got one that you're just finishing off that you're going to drop shortly. So we look forward to writing that. And thank you for coming on.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thanks
Josh.
so much.
All right, G.
Okay.
All right, see you guys.
And go. Cheers.
See you. Go Magic.
Go Magic.